Did you ever look at some of Capcom's games and go, man, I wish Capcom made a Neo Geo-like device to give me a one-to-one translation to my TV? Well, have you ever had that thought? And I honestly don't know how many of you have, but you're in luck because they did. Meet the Capcom CPS changer. How did this thing work? Why does almost no one know about this thing? How painfully expensive was it? And what was its library? Well, let's find out on your next Gaming Oddities. In the 1990s, Capcom was one of the names in the industry. Most of us know them from their amazing fighting games like Street Fighter, Marvel vs. X-Men, and the like. They also had mini games like Forgotten Worlds, Ghouls and Ghosts, Strider. All of those used what was known as the CP system. This was their arcade board of choice around this time, known as the CPS-1 and the CPS-2, which was the later revision of the board. You see, this system was intended to solve a particular problem in the industry for Capcom: custom boards. Up to this point, most arcade units would have a custom motherboard designed specifically for that particular game. What Capcom wanted to do was to make a motherboard system that would allow them to put any number of games on a single board type, which would give them more flexibility and cut costs. Not a bad idea. Why are we talking about this? Well, simply put, this is what the CPS changer was going to use as well. The thing is, instead of emulating the Neo Geo AES with the huge cartridges that snapped into the base, Capcom decided to use a more Supergun or JAMA interface. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's more of an interface used in a stand-up arcade machine rather than an actual console. Effectively, all it did was add an enclosure to the boards and allow them to plug into the setup, which would supply connections to hook the thing up to your TV and get ports for you to be able to hook up controllers, with one of which included, that being the CPS Fighter Stick. This was the preferred controller for the system. Now, this fighting stick was released for both the Super Nintendo and the Genesis consoles. In short, from what I can tell from looking at this unit, it really felt more like they had more or less modified an arcade board just enough so that it could be used as a console, and an expensive one at that, costing around $399 US retail at the time. Street Fighter II Turbo and one controller would come with this particular console, with games costing anywhere between 20,000 yen for one, 38,000 yen for 2 games, and 55,000 for 3 games. That's a price of somewhere around $131 all the way up to $362. That's pretty much about the exact same ballpark as the Neo Geo overall. The overall problem with the system outside of its expense was support, because you see, this system didn't have that many games. It had roughly 11 games in total, with the last one being Street Fighter Zero, which cost a whopping 35,000 yen, or $230 today, for the system's final farewell game. This price, coupled with a few other things, make it a very, very rare console. You see, the system never released outside of Japan, which makes it an oddity unique to that particular country. It also had other issues in common with the Neo Geo system, in that many, if not all of its games, were releases of popular arcade games in true one-to-one translation. So unless you were very serious about having the arcade experience in your home and didn't want to spend the money and space on cabinets for each one of these, this would be your only option from Capcom. Another issue they had was the rise of newer consoles. You have to remember, this was the 90s, and there was a lot of new, more powerful consoles coming out very rapidly with all sorts of new technologies. In particular, the Sega Saturn and the Sony PlayStation would drop between 1994 and 1995. This made Capcom a bit nervous, as this system was never meant to be an actual competitor to any of the major consoles. It was intended to be a niche product that would allow consumers to have the arcade in their home without, actual arcade machines. And with the new consoles pushing graphics close to, if not above, the current arcade market, the system just no longer seemed viable to produce. However, what do you guys think of this one? Did any of you know about this one, and how many of you had a chance to play one? Let me know in the comments. While you're there, please leave this video a like, and if you haven't, consider following the channel. That helps me out a ton. Until we meet again though, have a great rest of your day, and happy gaming.